if I don't hear from you in the next kind of 10 seconds, I'm going to try and pull you out. If climbing is a thrill, then caving is a thrill of exploration. Type 2 fun is shit in the moment, but when you finished, it's like, that's great. I started climbing when I was like 17. So it's quite, in like climbing terms, quite a late bloomer probably.
Yeah. If you just pull the mic like to your wherever you're comfortable type.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That sound.
Yeah.
Right there then.
No, because I went climbing for the first time with Deck, I think a year ago.
Yeah.
And is it that kind of thing where is it a sport where people learn to love it, or you like it like on the first day?
A bit of both for me. I think when I tried it, I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
But the kind of the people you do it with are kind of strange.
Oh, really?
And the nuances are all really, it's like it grips you because there's so much to it and you want to dive in really deep.
Right.
And then there's like quite a common thing that happens in climbing is you start and you kind of fall into all the trends. It's great. And then you realize that you've got loads to learn and it just makes you feel daunted. And you're like, well, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
That definitely happened to me when I was like maybe a year in or something, 2 years in.
Yeah, because it's kind of, well, I went on your Instagram actually the other day, and it sums you up really. Like every post is you doing something absolutely crazy, like probably to the normal person.
Probably something stupid, yeah.
No, but like, the way I'd kind of describe it is like, you've got most people's Instagram, I've just gone for a nice dinner, I've just gone for this. Go along yours, okay, he's just jumped off a building, he's just gone through some sort of such a dark cave, like it feels like every Instagram post you could have died.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of them I nearly did, or at least seriously injured myself, which is yeah, I don't tell my mum this stuff. But there you go.
Well, if you had to kind of describe what your hobbies are and like who you are to the listeners, like what would you say you do in your free time?
I would say I'm a pioneer of type 2 fun.
I love that.
Everything.
Explain more, elaborate on that.
So like I would say type 1 fun is like having fun, right? You know it's fun in the minute, like having a drink with your mates or playing Mario, right? Being on TikTok, I don't know. And then type 2 fun is shit in the moment, but when you finished, it's like, oh, that was great.
Right, yeah. There is that. Like I went skydiving in New Zealand a few years ago, and that is that kind of thing of shitting me in the moment, but then when you've got to process it for the next 2 days, there's that like a long release of maybe not endorphins, but just you feel great.
For sure. I can see why people get coins adrenaline junkie. Because like afterwards you just get, I don't know if it's adrenaline or endorphins, but you just feel great. You're like, wow, you've kind of battled through something, whether it's stupid or not, but
maybe it dates back to obviously when we were hunter-gatherers, where we were in those situations more and we're more used to it. But now you've got these people where we have comfort, we're in our own homes, but there are people like you still chasing that every week.
That resonates with me, definitely. I mean, I was having this conversation with a mate last night. It's kind of, you just kind of feel like you want to do something, even if it's at stupid times or just because I feel cramped, or especially living in Manchester, it's quite a dense place. Just like you want to get out a little bit. It's definitely escapism. That's what I'd say.
Yeah. I've started going on a lot more hikes. I mean, obviously in Manchester you got the lakes. That's probably the closest way I go. But yeah, I've been noticing that because the way I used to do it was running. I used to go for runs, but I feel like I'm more present in a walk or a hike than a run.
You're able to definitely like sort of connect with yourself and think and self-reflect, and that's kind of how I guess I feel when climbing. Yeah, you just kind of you can think inwardly a little bit because you're quite alone. Makes it all sound quite sad, doesn't it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're just like out there by yourself. No, yeah. So you started off by climbing. How was that? So now, start off when you were 17. How old are you now?
I'm 23 now.
23 now. And how has that been for 5 years?
It's good. I mean, there's definitely a progression in climbing, especially nowadays. Like back in the day when old boy climbers used to get into sport, you just go straight outside and do crazy stuff. And now it's like definitely a progression of climbing indoors, doing some bouldering, and then getting out into the hills. So I've definitely followed that kind of ladder. I went climbing indoors and kind of fudged it a little bit, and went outdoors and did the same, and then sort of been doing that ever since, really.
Yeah, and you've never kind of lost that, because I feel like a lot of people have hobbies when they're younger, and a lot of people lose them because I've got work or relationships or sound. But it seems like from first impressions, that is kind of a lot of focus on the center of you constantly doing that, or regularly doing that.
Yeah.
Does that kind of help you in other areas of your life as well, would you say?
It definitely gives something to look forward to. I think I'm the kind of person where if I'm not got anything happening, I feel quite kind of downtrodden. Initially for climbing, it was a way to spend time with mates. And that sort of, I guess, became a hobby over a few years.
It would be though, but it would be day-to-day life would be mundane if you're used to doing all these incredible things. I mean, I'll get on to the scuba diving, which I want to talk to later.
Sure. Yeah.
But that is insane because, well, that's like a lot of people. Say if you're just going to and from work each day, seeing a hedgehog on the side of the road may make their day. But for a thing like you doing extreme sports and things like that, it's a totally different perspective. You probably have a different perspective than most people.
I guess. I mean, it does make some things you do feel more mundane, but equally, I think it does kind of teach you to appreciate stuff as well. It's little things like being able to have a hot meal or drive your car around. It's kind of take a lot of that for granted until you've, I don't know, sat in a cave for a couple of hours and thought about your life.
Have there ever been? Is there anything that comes to mind like early on that was scary, or any close calls like
definitely.
Early on?
Yeah, definitely. I'm laughing because I think Declan knows the story.
Declan's he's been on the podcast, a good friend of ours.
Yeah, he before we went on a big trip to Spain, I told him the story. It's like when I was kind of fresh to climbing after a few years, me and a mate, we climbed together quite a lot. We went away to Spain, to a region called Costa Blanca, which is, it's like Alicante kind of way, really well known to climbers, got amazing rock. And there's this big ridge out there called Bernia Ridge. And it's this almost like a big shark fin that you kind of have to traverse across the top of. And there's various bits where you kind of have to rig up the ropes and be very careful because it's quite sheer drops on the side. And we went up with near to no water in like the middle of July. So we got maybe like 4 hours in and got way too dehydrated. My mate made the decision. He was like, we need to bail. We need to get off now. So we kind of staggered down a scree slope, which is like a slope of loose rock, I guess. And then we could see a tree at the bottom. We thought, okay, great. So we're near at the bottom. And we got to this tree, and then just at the tree, it was this sheer drop, just fell right off. And around the tree was this really old rope. We thought, crap, someone's tried to bail and do exactly the same. So we put our rope around it and then tried abseiling off. And I went first, abseiled maybe like 50 meters. That was the full length of the rope. And then I hit the knot at the end of the rope that we're tied, and I thought, shit. And still about maybe another 50 meters below me, easily. And it was a big kind of, as you went off the edge, it kind of cut in. So I was kind of hanging in really free space, and there wasn't a lot there apart from this rope that someone else had left that was a little way off to my right. And it was at that time, when I was at that point in climbing, I didn't really know how to do things like swap ropes or how to prusik up, which is climbing back up a rope.
Right.
And I didn't know how to do that.
How many years in was this then?
This was probably about maybe 2.5 years in. So I was pretty fresh. I wasn't particularly experienced. I was a strong climber, but wasn't experienced. So we bit off way more than we could chew. Especially doing something stupid like that and abseiling off. It was a bad decision. And in the end, I decided to swap ropes. So I ended up swinging across and then coiling the other rope around my arm. And I just unclipped myself and really quickly tried to put the new rope in. And there was a couple of minutes where I was like, kind of hanging there thinking, if I let go now, that's it. It was really weird. I don't remember it being scary. It was more, I remember it being kind of, the only way to describe it is like being out of body.
Right.
I was kind of like, it was like I was watching a video of it happening, like after I'd gotten back. And then every few seconds it would come to me, I'm not, this is real, it's happening now. And then I don't know if whether because I was tired or it was all too much, but that's how it felt. It was bizarre.
Yeah. Like how, that's interesting because in that moment, there are those people in pressure situations where they just fail. It's like a fight or flight kicks in. But that's such an interesting thing because you're there and your life is purely in your hands in that situation, right?
I think for me, I'd already gone through kind of the initial fight or flight. I'd had a panic.
Right.
I wasn't happy, and then after that, I kind of just sat there in the sun, just hanging on this rope. And I thought, there's not kind of contemplating my options, and that I remember just sort of tying random knots and playing with all the kit I had, and not achieving anything, but just doing something to keep my mind up, sort of turning.
Yeah.
Because I think I remember thinking at the time really strongly that if I just stop and do nothing, I'll just, I'll die. That'll be it. I'll just, I don't know, I'll fall into a hole in my own mind, and it'll be awful. Really bizarre. Wow. But yeah, stupid stuff.
Wow. And you must see that in other people. You must see that happening sometimes. Of course, we're not saying this happens all the time, things like that shouldn't happen. But you're with your friends, you were young, like
100%.
things. Wow. And who knows? Like, this was just a hobby. Not many people's hobbies put their lives in danger that much, and that's why I think it's very unique in that sense. Okay, you've got boxing, you've got mixed martial arts where their risk of dying is there. There's a risk there, but it's like solely up to you, which is, I'm trying to think of other, and you could probably think of other sports which are like that, but
it's definitely a few. But I think it definitely felt like it wasn't kind of like you make a decision, you get the consequence immediately. It was we made a string of bad decisions we hadn't noticed, and then all of a sudden the consequence hit, and it's like, you have to. It kind of hit me as like, wow, I need to start planning days, weeks before I did this, to get it right. And we just thought we could rock up on the day and it'd be fine.
Wow,
it doesn't work like that.
It's crazy. I mean, you said you're in a relationship now, but I reckon you going on a first date, the stories you could tell someone. Fucking hell. Yeah. Like, geez, am I going to be taken along to these climbing?
And they probably think this is just stupid. Not a stable person to be with.
Well, that's it. Like, most people, their lives aren't like that. And most people, if you ask them to do that, they would say no. And rightly so, right?
Yeah.
It is crazy. So going from climbing then to something like caving, right?
Yeah.
Now that has different dangers to it, right? That's a different kind of
quite different stuff. Caving it's a really intense sport. Okay. Not that climbing isn't intense, but it's a very it's claustrophobic. Everything is happening the same as you are climbing, but you're not in a big open space. It just feels like you're very trapped. And you're more, I guess, you're more conscious of things happening. It's definitely got some risk to it.
So from my understanding, what caving is usually with a group of people, maybe like 4 or 5, something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, and there are usually set out routes, or you have an idea of a route, and it's to get from one to the other. But the whole appeal is because you're going through tight spaces, and also there's parts of it like that. But is that basically what it?
Pretty much. I mean, caving is like, if climbing is a thrill, then caving is a thrill of exploration. It's pure discovery. It's going into you said taking a route. In caving we call it a trip.
Okay.
And going on a trip could mean taking a certain passage through a cave. It could mean going in one entrance and out another.
Right.
I think for me it's the thrill of seeing something that many people have seen, because climbing has got such a big audience now, and I think thousands of people can climb a route, but in caving is only it's a very small community of people that have been through that particular part of a cave or done that trip.
Yeah, like special. Yeah, okay. And there may be like, or in your world, like not celebrities, but big names that have done it, and you go,
sure,
I want to do that route. Or are there routes which are like, God, I can't do that yet. I'm not ready for that
100%.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
One that comes to mind is there's one relatively nearby to Manchester, and it's a connection between 2 caves. I've done both of them. One of them's quite deep and vertical. The other one's more of like a kind of windy river trip through a cave. And there's a passage that connects them, and it's got a small section called the Chamber of Horrors. And there's only a very small list of people that have done it in recent years. And it's not necessarily the skill set to do it, but it's definitely having the minerals. It's
right. So
scary.
When you say, would you say Cave of Horrors or
Chamber of Horrors?
Yeah. what's that then? Is it because of the level of tightness? These what do you say? They're trips. The tightness of the trips. Like
so it can be a number of things. In caving, it's kind of it's all things coming together. It's either the tightness, it could be water, it could be the amount of rope work needed.
Right.
But in that particular one, it's a series of 3 actually very small chambers that are partially flooded, and the last one is a sump that you've got to dive through, and then that's basically you pop out in the other cave after that. Wow. and you can exit to the water surface.
That's something only this week I've learned about, but sumps insane.
Yeah.
When I heard about caving, I was like, okay, these guys go through a nice little walk through a cave. Like, okay, there might be some, I mean, I saw some videos on your Instagram. We'll probably pop some up on the side while we're doing this if you're cool with it. But there is another element to caving where it's underwater and you don't know if your friends made it or not, you know. So tell me how sumps work. Tell me how sumps.
So a sump is like where the cave is flooded to the roof. It's usually quite a small section. So you get to a sump and you kind of have a game plan. You kind of say to each other, right, well, if I don't hear from you in the next kind of 10 seconds, I'm going to try and pull you out.
Right.
Because a lot of the time a sump is short enough where you can dive through with, you know, you can be able to reach in and pull someone if you need to. Some of them are longer, but it's a case of taking a few deep breaths and putting your fear aside and just going for it. Diving through the squeeze and out the other end, really.
And you got headlights on? Because obviously there's being underwater in a cave must be the darkest thing, right?
It's a lot. I think, to be honest, at that point, I kind of close my eyes. There's not much point having your eyes open.
Oh, really?
Because it usually just kind of funnels you out. But,
right.
I mean, some sumps, that particular one I talked about earlier is kind of so tight you have to have your helmet off. So it's a kind of your head torch in front of you in your hands. Jesus. And it can be really disorienting and really quite, and because the water's so cold as well. It's,
is there like a type of person, you know, you got these climbers, you got these people going through underwater tunnels basically. Is there, like, when you're hanging out with people who do this, is there like a way you could categorize them, or are these people accountants, you know? Are these people are they all wild? Like,
I guess, certainly with climbers, a lot of people are quite sporadic. And they all tend to do the same jobs, I guess, like either instructors or they're kind of doing something outdoorsy.
Yeah. Cavers. Well, you were talking about that earlier. What do you do work over the summer, right?
Yeah. So I work as a water sports instructor. And I recently became a climbing instructor. So doing a bit of that on the freelance. In the winter, I do people's skis, basically do ski boot fitting.
God, no, you're in it. You're living and breathing it by the sounds of it.
Trying to, it's a difficult industry to get into at the moment because it's quite saturated. But
right, okay, Well, how come is it just been over the recent years that it's been an influx of people?
It's also a case of you have to be qualified, and getting qualified costs a lot. It's having the right assessments done to teach certain skills is really tough. Getting those courses done is the expensive and difficult bit for most people. A lot of cavers tend to have that as their kind of primary sport. They don't do much else, and they tend to be quite insular people.
Yeah.
Just nature of the sport, I suppose.
So going from being underwater in a cave, you also do scuba diving as well, right?
Yeah, not as much as I'd like to, but I do dive. Diving's cool. For me, it was a big fear thing. Yeah. So like ever since I was a kid, I've been terrified of deep water. I'm like, I've got that like thalassophobia thing. Right. The thought of being in deep water and not being able to see the bottom or touch the bottom is terrifying to me. So, or it used to be a lot more, and then I thought the best way to combat that would be to try scuba diving. Try and face the fear head on, really. And so I just took a course and learnt, and that was that. But diving's a weird one. It's like the most bizarre place the human body can be, because it's completely unnatural. You're floating underwater, breathing through an artificial lung, and it's kind of, everything doesn't quite feel right. So you kind of feel on edge a lot of the time, or at least I did.
You're underwater, and I'm sometimes swimming amongst like imagine beautiful creatures.
Yeah.
But like you said, it almost feels like I shouldn't be here. I'm a mammal.
It's wrong.
It's crazy, right? I'm a mammal in a wetsuit with these weird flappy things on my feet. That is insane. No. And how is that being? So you're saying the reason you started was because you had a fear of water, but now I've still
very much got that fear of deep water. 100%. I'll do a bit of open water swimming occasionally to try and break myself out, but yeah, I'm still, I wouldn't say scared of deep water, but uncomfortable in it.
I think if anybody says they weren't scared of water to a certain degree, I would call bullshit. Like the sea,
it's dangerous stuff.
What isn't scary about that? Just like open sea,
a big black pit of water.
Big black pit. You don't know how deep it goes.
Yeah.
We don't know what 90% of it holds.
Exactly. There's stuff at the bottom. I don't want to think about it. You know,
I'd say that's pretty normal to be scared of the sea. That's what I.
Yeah, that's a fair fear, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'll hold my hand up to that one.
yeah, that's fine. So yeah, you're usually going out with you scuba dive. Like, what is that experience like, and what is like your favorite thing you've seen? Like,
scuba diving it's a very much a buddy experience. So it's normally two. It's a pair, and unlike most of the other sports I talked about, you're very reliant on your buddy. If your aqualung system fails, they have to be on guard to save you. That's why a lot of divers have two regulator sets on them. One's bright yellow, so if you do run out of gas, you give a quick "I'm out," and they come over and feed you their gas.
Oh wow!
And that's crucial. You know.
So they have the ability to manually make you breathe whilst they're breathing.
Basically, right? you can breathe from the same cylinder for a short time.
And say if and you may be really deep down, like what is the thing you do? If are you responsible for swimming that person up if something does happen? It's
a tricky one. I mean, depending on how deep you are, a big consideration of scuba diving is deco, which is decompression.
Wow.
So as you start going deeper, your body on gases where it absorbs nitrogen, and the blood gets saturated eventually. So as you come up, you've got to take stops every now and then, and that just lets the body, the nitrogen just sort of perforate out the bloodstream and into your tissues and out into the sea. And if you don't do that, if you come up too fast, it just bubbles into the blood, and it's extremely painful.
Right. So there's a technique of coming back up to the 100%, top.
100%, yeah.
Wow, because you don't want that. Wow.
So it's almost like there's an urgency to get your partner up if they're in trouble, but equally you can't just surface because you'll kill yourself effectively.
Fuck. How was that training? How was the training for that?
It's terrible.
Jesus.
I mean,
after hearing that, I imagine what the instructors were telling you the first time you went down there. God.
It's tough. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the depths you go to when you first start. It's not so important. You can normally just bang it up to the top and it's fine. But the thing about deco is it affects everyone differently, and you can have, even just being hungover or having not enough food to eat, it makes a massive difference. And you know, you can certainly, I've had it minor before, where you come to the surface and your ears are ringing a little bit, and you feel like, I don't feel quite right.
Yeah.
And you just know you shouldn't be on the surface yet.
Wow. God, I didn't know that. My naive view on it was just, you know, you go to the top and you're fine.
Yeah.
You know, you swim up and you're fine. But no, that makes sense. There's a lot of pressure your body is under at these deep depths, right?
100%.
And really, and I mean, you just look at the creatures that live down there. They look like aliens in the first place. So you don't wonder why our bodies are just not meant for it, right?
It's just wrong. Yeah.
God. Where's your favorite place that you've dove?
Favorite place, I've not dived in many places, but it's not outside the UK anyway, but I would say the Isle of Mull in Scotland. Okay. That was incredible. It's not particularly deep, there's a few wrecks, but you get to see seals. And they're just like great big dogs. They're like Labradors of the sea.
Wow.
And they just come and cuddle you. They want to be around people. They're very friendly creatures.
Wow. And
you can just tell they're happy, just happy to see you.
Damn. I wish my girlfriend was like that. No. No, that's nice. You know, you've just had a scary like dive or something. You get a nice little hug from a was it a seal?
A seal, yeah. Don't get me wrong, they got really sharp teeth, but they're very friendly.
They try and nibble you?
They do actually. They try and bite your hands, but not in an aggressive way. It's playful. They'll just sink their jaws around your hand and just sort of kind of pulse.
Yeah, so the first time you do that, think, well, my hand's gone.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Yeah.
No, but they're just pissing around.
They're just pissing around, having fun. Yeah, they're really sweet.
Wow. And like, have you got any more like planned going for dives, or do you want to do any more?
I'd love to. Yeah, I'd love to dive in like Middle East, Far East, like Thailand, Mexico's one, like South America kind of way. There's loads of stuff out there, but yeah, my girlfriend's a real diver. I'm sort of, compared to her, a beginner.
Right.
she's way more advanced than me, but yeah, I'd love to see more.
Wow.
Just need to get there.
Yeah, no, I imagine it's a lot harder to kind of schedule and plan compared to like climbing or it's a hell of a lot more. You rely a lot more on having other resources. Like you need a boat, you need someone to drive the boat, someone to fill your cylinders up with gas, and and you can't just get anyone from the street. This is your life, right?
Yeah,
you gotta. No, I'm sure they're not just gonna let anybody do it, but
it's a rough one, yeah. And having the right mix of gas, it makes a difference. And you know, you sometimes can't just breathe air, because that could be quite deadly.
Yeah, no, of course.
Yeah, it's a weird sport.
Yeah, I always think the closest thing that reminds me to the deep dark depths of the ocean is space. I don't know why. My brain 100%. Goes there just because of the sparse like land and the little we know about it. So you said you've come into contact with like seals. Any other like cool sights you've seen down there?
The best thing I've seen is like wreck diving. That's the best thing I've done with diving. That's something that appeals to me. It's just swimming through something that's been on the seabed for a long time, like a sunken aircraft I've swum through, and a small boat, a ship. That was really cool. Wow. And it's just, again, it's kind of the same as caving. It appeals to you that not many people have seen it, and it's something that's been left untouched for decades on the seabed. Yeah, you know, somewhere where potentially people have died, or you know, something. So there's a story there. Yeah, you kind of feel part of the story when you're doing it.
You could see not skeletons, but the stuff you could see. You could see like relics. Yeah, and probably only a handful of people have seen. Wow,
it's really cool. And exactly, you're perfectly right with the space thing. It's so isolating, and it's kind of really peaceful in a way, but when you start to think about it too deeply, it becomes quite terrifying in the sense you're fully reliant on the equipment you've got, and there's not a lot between drowning and living in that situation.
I feel like if I was scuba diving, I would be very reliant on my companions, whoever I'm with, but also like you said, avoid being in the moment in the way that I wouldn't want to feel the gravity of where I am. I wouldn't want to be you'd want to be very
you kind of want to be a bit,
you wouldn't want to deep it.
You want to detach yourself a little bit, even just by looking at fish or looking around.
I'd want to see a nice little Nemo though. Made me feel a bit happier about life, you know. No, but I would definitely give it a go. But by the sounds of it, you know, what tourists are doing diving, it's just, you know, they're going down a couple of meters. The most rewarding part of it is getting that full training and then having like the liberty to explore.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's definitely a limit of what you can do in diving. So you can't go too deep, and if you do, then you're in trouble. But yeah, certainly being out there diving with just you and a buddy is like, it's a really freeing thing. Yeah, you know, going through wrecks and seeing cool stuff.
Curious question: what can you hear? Now, this sounds like a dumb question, but we've all been underwater at a swimming pool or a beach, you know, and what. Yeah. But when you're down there, what can you hear, or can you hear nothing at all because the equipment?
You can hear. Actually, the loudest thing is the equipment. Right. So the biggest thing you can hear is the regulator. Okay. Which is the mouthpiece. Okay. It's sort of like a kind of Darth Vader-y. Right. And then followed by lots of bubbling.
I think I heard a quote. If you were able to talk to a lion and it could speak perfect English and you were speaking to it, you still wouldn't understand a word it was saying. Just because of from where it's from. It would be speaking English, but you just wouldn't have any perspective or anywhere to relate to it, right?
That's interesting. I can imagine just its experiences make up its language.
Like we talk about going to the shop, we talk about, oh, Nancy's really getting on my nerves at work, right? These things. But what they would speak about, it wouldn't even pass your mind. What they're concerned
did
about.
You eat yesterday? Yeah.
Yeah, like
doesn't make much sense, does it?
Yeah. Yeah, no, maybe I don't know. I don't know if I fully believe that, but yeah, I get what they're kind of saying, right? Yeah. So yeah, moving on from caving then, what would you say is like something you haven't done yet? Like one thing I want to do is skydiving. Another thing I want to do is I haven't done yet is bungee jumping. Is there anything like you saw and go, I need that thrill. I need to chase that?
100%. I see a lot of people doing like paragliding. I'd love to get into that. A lot of people are turning towards that now as kind of adventure sport, and it's again quite a costly thing to try, I think. But again, that seems like a really peaceful experience, kind of being up there amongst the birds and kind of just soaring around.
Yeah. I would be scared to do that in the UK. The wind sometimes.
Yeah.
Like,
it'll be
all of a sudden in Manchester just starts raining. Well, I'm going down. Damn, but yeah, no, that does sound cool and so peaceful, I imagine.
Definitely.
Like, if you, as long as you weren't like flying over Salford or something, you know, a nice city.
somewhere pretty, not the city.
Yeah, no, fully. I mean, it just made the difference. Well, I haven't done it in the UK, but I skydived, whatever you say. I think it was 16,000 feet. Let me just double check my Instagram so I don't get that wrong, because I could be overshooting that. But let me just double check. So where's the post? Here we go. It was 15,000 feet.
Awesome, that's high.
So yeah, that was like the highest you could do without training.
Yeah.
So
that's cool.
And that was with someone on the back. But I remember the whole ascent up, right? These guys were just cracking jokes the whole way. I went with my brother and my dad, and my brother was shitting himself. But skydiving instructors seem like a really good laugh though. Like, or people like I've seen videos of people bungee jumping. These people who prepare them and like, have you checked it? Have you checked the straps? Like, nah, man, we haven't. Like, they just seem so chill. And you're one of those.
What's that
right?
meme with that guy who is being held? He's like, let me tell you something.
yeah. They're just like, let me tell you. No, you got to check first. Yeah, dude. Wow. And it is interesting because there is a common response people have right before they bungee jump.
Sure.
And one thing they say is just go. Like, nothing's going to happen, but there is that fear. But you as a person have probably experienced that type of fear more than average, right? You probably experienced that.
I guess, yeah. I mean, I definitely get used to working with fear differently. Maybe not better, but definitely differently. I think a common reaction I used to have to fear was kind of freaking out first, thinking about it later. And I think now in a situation, my mind kind of clicks straight to solving problems, or at least trying to make efforts to solve a problem. Whether it's cohesive or not is a different story. But it's definitely a different way of thinking.
It's kind of like climbing is very problem solving, isn't it? Very that. And well, in similar way, but then there are these other things like skydiving or scuba diving. There's probably more intricacies in that, but the difference is you're just doing something, and the whole difficulty is overcoming your own thoughts.
Definitely,
that's the biggest challenge. Not actually doing it. Yeah. You're strapped by these people. These people are trained to prepare you to do it. You're not gonna, deep down, you're not gonna die. But try tell yourself that before you jump 100 feet down or something.
That's a great statement. Yeah, I mean, there's a great quote I've heard. I don't know who it's from, but people often say that when climbing mountains, mountaineers aren't tackling the mountain; they're tackling the mountain in their head, and it's definitely that resonates because you make it into a much bigger problem than it seems. Especially that happens in everyday life. Just making things silly, trivial problems like your car breaking down or not having anything for dinner and Tesco's is shut as being a big problem, but it puts in perspective.
Yeah, bloody Sundays, man. It gets me annoyed, dude. They just assume everyone's Christian. Like, England we're still 50 years ago. No, but that's why I always respect my local corner shop. They're always open.
The boss man shop. That's the place to go.
The boss man doesn't care if it's bloody Easter Sunday, dude. No, I respect that. God. I wonder though, in terms of that, I went to a primary school that was I was so heavily pushed the Christian agenda that I wonder if I wasn't, I would be a Christian, You know when you hear that, like when, I don't know how your upbringing was, but I was shoved it so much down my throat that maybe like the rebellious teenager in me just didn't care.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I've heard that like sort of pushing your hobbies and stuff onto your kids or your mates, it kind of forced them to not do it when they're older.
Yeah.
That's quite a common thing I've heard of.
Like, do you think, like hobbies that your kids have, of course they're going to do that because you're providing money and you're going to probably want them to do those things because you did that, but that's not necessarily right.
Yeah, it's definitely, even if they enjoy it, I think it's like a rebellion thing. You know, you don't want to do what your dad did. You know, you want to do something crazy.
You want to be yourself. You want to make your own path.
Sure.
That's an interesting. I always find that difficult as hell. I'm only 21, but having a kid, there's so many concerns and like,
goodness,
do I do this? Do I do that? There's so many things where.
As I'm getting older, I'm kind of thinking to myself, I'm getting older, I'm in my 20s, but you know, you kind of think to yourself, how the fuck do you be a dad? You know, what do you do? Man. You know, how do you bring up a kid? I
think you maybe just take them trad climbing. I think maybe when they're about 1, I think maybe then they're...
That'll get them.
Maybe we should explain what trad climbing is to those people who don't know.
Yeah, definitely. So trad climbing is traditional climbing. So it's like climbing where you place protection into the rock in natural features. So as you climb up, you kind of wedge small bits of metal called nuts, sometimes called wires and cams, into cracks in the rock. And if you fall off, in theory, that piece of protection holds the fall and catches you. Sometimes they don't, which is what kind of the adrenaline aspect of trad climbing is. But
I imagine we can pull some videos and images to the side of as well. We're talking about this.
Yeah.
But have you ever done that?
Oh, all the time.
You do that?
That's like when I talk about climbing, that's mainly what I do.
Wow.
Mainly trad.
I didn't even know that. Sorry, while you're talking about climbing, my brain was like, you with the guys, you're strapped in all the time. Wow.
No, so traditional climbing is pretty much the only way to climb beyond a certain point.
Right.
So before that point, you try something called sport climbing, which is more or less the same thing, except the protection is drilled into the rock. It's bolted with what we call it. Wow. And then trad is kind of the next level up. You do that, but you're placing your own protection. And it's crazy, but it's the only way to actually climb something without having to leave stuff behind. It's the purest way.
No, that does sound cool. As soon as I heard that for the first time, I was like, they should just call that shit Chad climbing. Jesus Christ.
So, funny enough, I'm thinking about different names for it. I've heard people say it's just like proper climbing or
yeah, imagine you're going to the next climb or something. You see, these guys are sports climbing, fucking rookies.
You'd be surprised how much that quote is thrown around the climbing industry.
God,
sport climbers.
Now that I know, like, I'm only surface level, but I can imagine the trash talking that goes on.
Oh, definitely. There's a massive divide between different types of climbing now. Like, sport climbers are almost very different identities to trad climbers. It's really strange.
Damn, yeah. And if anything, if I was gonna trust, we had a group of sports climbers and trad climbers. Who would I trust more? Probably the sports climbers, because they're not fucking psychopaths.
So it's funny you say that, but actually I would say something around, there's a quote, a lot of people refer to trad climbers as trad dads. Because they're usually really like, I'm the same. They have a particular flavor of autism, which kind of resonates with, that piece of gear is a little bit subsect. It's not exactly the right force. And think about angles of the slings. And it's really technical. And that resonates with a lot of people that have slightly right appeal to the tism.
Yeah. I mean, I think 50, maybe. Yeah, I think it's like a 50-50 people I met in climbing who are autistic or not. Of course, you never truly know, but you can
have an educated guess.
You can have I don't know how good my autism radar is, but I think it's getting better, definitely. But I think I was talking to this with a friend the other day.
Yeah.
Over the last 3 years, I've surrounded myself with a lot more autistic people, and I'm trying to figure out, is that because, well, I am myself, I'm a little bit autistic, or just I like hanging out, I just get on better with those
It's
people.
like a cycle, isn't it? You hang out with those kind of people and then you become autistic by proxy, and then you just hang out with more people who have
And
autism.
then I had the argument, is that like autistic appropriation? Like, is it, is that, am I discriminating against neurotypical people because I have more autistic friends? I mean, maybe in 10 years I'll get flack for that, like the whole cancel culture.
The way the world is going, that sense. Yeah.
So I think in maybe 5 or 10 years time, people are going to be calling me out and going, where are your neurotypical friends at,
You're going to be there in 10 years' time deleting these old videos. These early podcasts are going to be gone.
Or I get a test and they tell me I'm autistic, so I'm like, fuck you guys. I can joke about it.
Let's put it as a massive banner.
Like disclaimer. Like, or maybe I'll make a whole YouTube video just like coming out or something.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. It is interesting though, because you saying, do you think that has helped you? You said you have autism, or
I wouldn't say I've got autism. Maybe I do, maybe I don't.
Yeah.
I would say I've definitely got tendencies.
Yeah.
Because the way my mind works when I think about climbing and sort of equalizing anchors and, you know, using equipment, that's definitely brings out an autistic tendency in me.
Yeah, but there are those people who think like that who won't be. It's interesting. I'll have to get someone on about that, and maybe they could just diagnose me on a podcast.
Yeah,
that would be interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah, damn. I've always thought of that, of getting like a therapist on, but I'm then like, well, this might, and I might just end up crying on camera.
How many diagnoses you come out with? That'd be it.
Yeah, dude.
I kind of think sometimes if you go and get yourself diagnosed with something, it puts a label on it. You kind of you're conscious of being there, and it becomes you. You know, even if you were autistic, if you don't have it diagnosed, you go your whole life and live a very different personality to where you would be if you had the diagnosis.
Yeah, I mean, there was I don't know if you've heard of it, but there's a sitcom called Derek, Ricky Gervais, I think.
I've heard of it,
and he's a very he's a disabled character. Ricky Gervais plays a disabled like 40-50-year-old. But this inspector comes round, and their idea, she's very rude and she's very blunt, and she goes, "Why is this guy working here?" And then someone goes, "Have you got him tested?" And then Ricky Gervais, who's playing this disabled person, goes, "If I do get tested and I do find out I have whatever, I think it was autism, what difference will it make?"
Yeah.
And that was like, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people who want to get that tested, and, you know, for clearing their mind, or maybe to help them get the support they need at school or whatever.
Sure.
But yeah, for some people, it's like, this is me. What difference does it make if I am clinically, diagnosed?
Why put a label on it? I think a lot of parents kind of, I mean, whether it helps them in school or not, it's a different story maybe, but kind of getting their kids diagnosed and then putting a label on it, how does that kid then grow up? Yeah, being labelled, you know, do they need to have that label?
Yeah,
is it affecting them that much?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of these labels going around now, and it's like, yeah, it may, you know, you'd probably, teachers would say you're special, you think differently, but yeah, there's also that thing of like, you might feel, oh, I can't hang out with my mates anymore, they might find me weird. It is a difficult one, man. This is going back to parenting, like, what the fuck?
I know.
I need to read like 10 books on it before I even think about not wearing a condom.
I thought climbing was complicated. It's not. Bringing up children is a different mindset.
I mean, as long as you don't die, right? I just don't want to, like, you know, I ask you to come on the podcast in a couple of years' time, and I text you and I just don't get a reply. I haven't got a reply from you in a while, and, you know, you may imagine, like, I just want you to be here. Yeah. Have fun, climb, but please be here, you know?
Exactly,
please.
That's it, yeah. That's the goal. Hopefully won't die in the next 10 years.
Of course, I'm not hoping that, but, you know, it's there's a lot of things. Well, we get out of the house and we could get run over by a bus, right? And that's probably one of the ways you see it, right? There's
definitely, it's a weird one. I think accepting that risk is a massive part of the sports I do, but also you kind of, the more you do it, the more you realize that the drive there is kind of the riskiest part in a way, and there's the chance of things happening is actually quite slim. But it's always there in the back of your mind.
Levels of fear actually control our lives more than you think, or control certain people's lives loads. I mean, after COVID especially, so many people have these new unlocked fears, just are scared to leave their room or leave their house. They now commute differently, they communicate differently. And this is interesting, but because your relationship with fear, right, and how everyone is now, like, we've got a whole new, like, group of people, a whole new generation of unique kind of ways of thinking and risk assessment.
Definitely. And that's kind of why I think it's so important to bring people towards adventurous sports, even just for, you know, one time in their life, because taking someone to an environment where fear becomes something that's in the back of the head right to the front, you know, maybe not terrifying someone to the bare bones, but letting them experience what it feels like to be a bit fearful for your life is really kind of healthy, I think, in a way. And you come out of that experience thinking, well, now I can see the world in a different perspective. Yeah, you know, I'm taking less things for granted. And
I mean, another thing that's come up recently is a lot of people doing ice baths, and now that's an example of it, right? So I think a lot of people do it for 3 minutes. It's putting your body under a circumstance of shock. Yeah. And during those minutes, it's the worst thing ever. but the benefits after that, substantial, and you feel amazing. True. Now, I imagine that your heart's beating a lot of these, and your brain is in that situation. When you do get to maybe fearful moments in your other parts of your life, you are able to tackle that with more. You're more composed.
I think you can definitely, almost get used to adrenaline. You know, you can almost adapt to it very well. I think because your fears change. You know, as I've gone on through doing adventure sports, you know, especially times where maybe my heart used to be racing, I'll occasionally have a moment think, well, I'm really calm, and that's unlocks another fear of thinking, well, am I getting complacent? Is something about to go wrong because I'm not scared anymore? And that's a really weird fear, the fear of not being afraid anymore.
Like the feeling everything's going too well right now. Oh shit, I need to turn my brain back on.
Basically like just almost enjoying the sport too much, which is really bizarre, especially when you're like caving or diving, when everything's out to get you. There's a lot of different ways things can go wrong, and you kind of sit this off. I'm very calm. I really shouldn't be. Yeah.
But most of these people, if they're living and breathing it, you would get to that state.
It takes a surprisingly little amount of time to get to that stage as well. Yeah.
Your assessment of fear would be great. I imagine those people would be very good at like bomb defusal. Well, I guess, obviously if they were trained, right?
Yeah.
But it's a very unique mindset. And you're right. I like what you said there. I think more people should take it up, especially with the state of the world right now, and getting people outdoors. I think as a whole, just getting outdoors as well is amazing.
It's a big perspective change, and I think when you take your eyes away from the very blinkered view of social media life, we're kind of almost drip fed a lot of things now and what to believe. And I think that just getting out, especially being on your own, sometimes you can consolidate your view on those things rather than what you're getting pushed.
Probably like I've had these last 2 weeks I've been working down in London. Haven't known many people there. That has been probably like the loneliest like couple of weeks I've had in a while. And I totally get what you mean. Like you all of a sudden your focus is clearer because you know there's less external input, so you know what you want to spend time doing. Your thoughts are clearer, and I think the less input, but then you also have the opposite side of that. You need input. You need some people to, you hear them people with yes men around them, but you need people to push and pull. You need that.
Definitely. You do. Eventually you need someone to say, look, no, stop. What you're doing is just or stupid,
If everyone ran into the forest, for months on end, society would fall.
Exactly.
But we're not trying, but there is a good in between. You don't want to just be caught up at like being in Manchester full time. I have to get away from it sometimes.
Rough. That I do believe that people are supposed to be in it. We're very social beings, humans, but sometimes you just need a bit of space to breathe. And the big kind of cities we live in now are just, you feel like you're drowning sometimes. I definitely can resonate with people that suffer from kind of anxiety from that.
Wow. Like, so you're saying going back to quite a while ago, you said your girlfriend likes skydive. Not skydive, scuba dives, right?
Yeah.
How did you meet her? Did you meet her while doing like an activity? Or?
We met through climbing at uni. Wow. So she's a climber as well, but took up the sport in a very different way.
Oh, okay.
So I think she would say I did it in a very stupid way. I started climbing when I was a teenager with a mate, and we learned it all basically off YouTube and books, and made a lot of cock-ups we didn't know we were making. She grew up in the Lake District, and her dad is a qualified caving, climbing, kayaking instructor. And so she's done it. I mean, her first ice climb was when she was 11 years old.
Wow. So I reckon the first time you met her dad, you were like, God. He's the master at everything I do.
It was definitely intimidating. I mean, it's definitely like I've got to prove myself. This guy.
All of a sudden you become dramatically better at climbing and everything because you're just like.
It was. I knew nothing about this when I met her. We met under very university terms. I'll put it that way. It was a very unexpected start to a relationship, and I think I underestimated her a lot. I didn't realize that she did all this kind of stuff as well.
But I think going back to that, I think the best dates you do is activities.
Sure.
Like, or even just a walk. I think like you have the clearest conversations with people when you're distracted by something. One thing I was taught in documentary making class at uni was a lot of the times you want to record someone speaking while they're driving.
Yeah.
Because they forget the camera's there. Well, this is another thing, but the point is you speak clearest when your body's distracted. Because if, like we said before, if all you're thinking about is your thoughts, then you overthink them and things get overlapped.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think doing these kind of things with a partner, like a romantic partner, it puts a whole different spin on it, for definite. Like especially going climbing, because you're not just, when I climb with a friend, I'm feeling the fear, I'm in the adrenaline kind of zone, but I'm not so afraid of what happens to them, not in a cold kind of way, but I know they're going to be fine.
Right.
Whereas when I go climbing with Jess, it's kind of, if she falls off, I need to do something, or like I need to check she's all right. I know she is. Like, she's a lot of times stronger climber than I am. Yeah, way better.
But you have that protective side.
But you feel like you need to protect that person. Yeah, it's really weird.
We all do when we have people we love, and that's right. That's wow. You're doing something so dangerous. The person you love, you're still trying to have a good time, but you're also like, please don't die.
I mean, it definitely pushes and pulls. I mean, there are definitely the flip side operations where you're doing something and you have a disagreement and because you're sort of so much more comfortable with each other and in having kind of disagreements, it puts a very weird light on the surface.
Yeah. I mean, going back to that, like in a situation where you're in a group of people, and you said you went back at the start of the podcast, you talk about this time where you're a bit dehydrated, you're going down. You've got to have a really good relationship with these guys, because what if one of them loses mentality? You just lose your mentality. Yeah. Things can go very downhill, surely.
Very, very quickly, yeah. I mean, there's one thing to look after yourself, but I think looking after someone else in that situation it's not doable. Yeah. I think the agreement we have when we go into these kind of situations is, if something happens, I'm gone. Right. I need you to know that. And it's kind of an unspoken thing. I've never actually said it to each other. Maybe more so with a partner, but to your mates, there's an unwritten kind of look you give each other at the start of the climb or the start of the cave, and you go, if something happens, I'm going to do my best, but it's all about me at that point, keeping myself safe. And it's a really, it's a difficult thing to empathize with.
You turn up there in the first, morning. Oh, Gary's had a rough fucking night. He was drinking all last night. Guys, we're probably not going to see him, Yeah, but you're just like, yeah, guys, come on. Gary's fucking drink. It's his fault, man. If he falls, he falls. No, but that is interesting. You've got to look out for yourself. I get what you're saying. I was having a little joke.
No.
Yeah. No, that is fucked. But these people, and that is, sorry, I've got to look out for me, because I imagine in those situations, it's hard enough to look after yourself. I mean, others.
I think part of the saddest thing of it is that there's no ill feeling. I think I'd almost feel better if that person had a problem with that. Right. It makes it feel more human. Yeah. But in that situation, you do feel very robotic when something's gone wrong for someone else, and there's not a lot you can do to help. You kind of sitting there or standing there thinking, you're in silence, and you go, I can't help. I can't solve the problem for you. And in one way, it's really frustrating. In other ways, you can almost feel them go, I know that I'm on my own now. Yeah. And it's really cold. Almost inhuman. Yeah.
Another interesting thing about feeling lost is I've heard about people trying to navigate through a rainforest before. Have you heard this? How insanely hard it is to navigate. Like, you could walk 25 meters, and if you try and go back the way you came, it's hard. The feeling of feeling lost. But in climbing, it would just be like, I don't have enough strength to get to this next hold. I don't have enough rope. I physically can't do this. Yeah. But what you're saying is it's more mental than you think. It's more of the mentality side than you think.
So much more. Yeah. The big thing we talk about in climbing is head game. And that's like kind of all about the pushing past the fear to climb above that bit of gear and accepting the fact you might fall off, or accepting the fact you might hurt yourself. And it's really, a lot of climbing is motivating each other. It's really tough. I've definitely had situations in the mountains where I've thought, I can't go any further. And you have a bit of a breakdown, and your mate comes along and goes, look, you can. Just shut up and get on with it.
Yeah, that's what you need.
It's...
And that's interesting, though, because everyone's motivated differently as well. Like, a lot of people, that tough love works on a lot of people, but like some people, tough love, they break the fuck down.
Yeah.
Like as well, that must be hard. As being an instructor, you said you're now training to be an instructor in summers you instruct. Did you say what was that in?
So that's in kayaking, like water sports.
Do you find that skill developing of how to like tailor your coaching to different personalities?
Definitely.
Like how has that been like?
Especially when I've taught climbing as well. It's because you're dealing with people who, you know, they're basically novices to the sport. They're really, really scared. And the biggest kind of learning point for me was realizing that their fear is 1,000 times more than mine. I've done this 100 times, walk in the park for me, but then convincing someone else who's never abseiled before to go over the edge is like, you've got to really empathize, and it's a lot of mental energy to put yourself back into those shoes that you were 6-7 years ago when you were a complete novice as well.
Yeah, wow.
I think I was told by a guy who did my climbing instructor assessment recently, and he says the best way to overcome that is to learn new skills yourself. And keep learning and keep trying new things, and that's how you become better at empathizing with novices.
Yeah,
he's
wow.
absolutely right.
That's so interesting. Yeah, because if you're not learning anything, you're like, oh, I'm top of this now. You know, I'm top 5 guy now. I'm teaching. No, you need to keep that learning because you need to. Wow, that's really cool.
It definitely encourages the thought of progression and the fact, kind of the thought and the mentality that the cup is always half empty, or sort of half. The teacup is not full yet. You know, there's always more to learn, and just being a qualified instructor doesn't mean you know everything. There's always someone that knows something more than you, and striving for that can be frustrating at times.
It would be so unfulfilling if you had learned everything in a certain criteria. You were the best at something. You wake up in the morning, you wouldn't want to get out. There's no reason for you to get out of bed.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no. Wow. Yeah, no, that's hit me, that the way of coaching. So, and do you think you've still got a long way to go? How long have you been teaching for?
Definitely. I mean, in climbing, I've kind of been teaching that for maybe 3 years since I've been at uni, really. Water sports, more like a year, so not very long at all. But definitely, like as an instructor, I'm still very new to it. In terms of how many people, you know, some people instruct for decades and still have got things to learn, and I'm definitely at the start of that journey.
Yeah, no, I think I've said once I've worked in the TV industry, I do want to go into teaching later on in my career, maybe teach editing, teach this. And I think the satisfying thing about that is also seeing where your people you've taught went on to go and do.
Definitely.
And that's something I haven't really experienced, but mainly probably because of our age. You know, you've got parents who do that. Oh, my son, he won a judo competition. My son, he's got an A, and that feeling is very like unheard of for me because we haven't experienced it yet.
Definitely, yeah.
But you get bits of that in coaching, and maybe that'll help you as a parent.
It does. It gives you kind of flickers of motivation. Every time you think, oh, this is kind of mundane, someone else goes, God, you know, I've learned something today. You've helped me push past this. And you go, oh, that's a feeling you can get addicted to.
Yeah.
That kind of social connection between someone learning something off you. It's really cool.
I mean, you look at Mr. Beast channel, his whole thing is giving to other people. That man must feel the best.
He must feel amazing.
I've just given someone $100 grand. I'm the best person in the world. No, but yeah, that is it. I think that there is a stage when we're young where we just want to grab everything. We want to do everything. But there must be a stage where most people get a bit bored of that. And then you start feeling enjoyment from giving it to others, or like passing down that wisdom. I was talking to a very old, that's really tight. I was talking to a quite old editor, and just hearing his stories about the industry in the 50s. This guy was editing the 50s and 60s, and that relationship he has to me, because I was like, mate, why are you talking to me? You've got work to be doing, you got this and that. And he's like, mate, this is like, he enjoys doing that as well. Yeah. Like passing down that information, and because there is stuff to be learned, even if it isn't relevant in any way. Hearing stories from whatever you're trying to do from the past is all, you're always going to have something to take. Is there anything you want to kind of coming on, you want to kind of promote, or is anything, I always ask people this because you've given your time to come on here kindly. Is there anything you want to kind of promote, or is there anything you want to kind of say?
I mean, I think for me, this was just literally a chance to come out and try something new. I've really enjoyed it, to be honest.
Nice.
It's cool. And that's kind of me summed up in where I like trying new things. I like being able to say I've done something different, because it's my way of becoming rounded. You know, I can humble myself by learning someone else's expertise.
Yeah.
And being in that is awesome. Yeah.
I mean, you're seeing maybe the start of it, or maybe just the start, because this is something I feel like is unique and something I could do throughout my life, and something I do want to do throughout my life, and something that's ongoing. I'm learning more. I'm finding my voice. I'm still in a way finding my USP about this thing.
Yeah.
Originally, this show was called Ed Squared because there was 2 guys called Ed on it, so I had my friend Ed. So, but now I'm finding myself leaning towards whatever I'm interested in. So you today, I mean, some of the things I may not do them exercises, them sports, but your mindset, and there's definitely some things I can take away from this conversation. You go, I'm trying to say that's kind of why I like I enjoy it so much.
Yeah, definitely. Same kind of thing. Just speaking to different people, it can be its own kind of release, its own rush, because you're getting a glimpse inside someone else's head, and that's something that no one's ever seen before. You know.
Were you originally from a city? Did you say you originally from like a city as well? So
yeah, I'm from Milton Keynes.
Oh man, I was there recently. I travel through there to get to London sometimes.
Born and bred. It's
Milton Keynes.
It's a strange place.
What is it like there?
New. Everything is kind of quite docile because Milton Keynes is planned. It feels like a small town, but it's quite big, but you don't notice it because they planned it. It was designed. It's not like Manchester, it grew organically. It's like it's a small place.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about Manchester. I talk to many of the locals here in Salford. And this happens in many cities, but originally, you know, you've got a lot of these working class people living in the center.
Yeah.
But I'm sure this happens in a lot of cities. There's a word for it I'm missing, but basically new builds come in, spreading all the locals and all like the people who are the heart of the city out further and further
like
apart.
Gentrifying,
that's the word. And that's what's happened in this city.
Yeah. Definitely.
And that's interesting as well. I suppose that works. I mean, London is an extreme version of that with tubes and systems.
It's a terrifying place.
you compare waiting in a tube stop, you're probably there, and then next week you're just on top of a mountain.
You know, to me though, being on a tube is like, that's more scary than being on a mountain. Wow. For me, being around all those people, London is like, my nightmare.
Yeah.
In a bottle. It's just I can't do it very long.
Yeah, I definitely like the fact I'm up here closer to like friends, like only an hour and a half away. I mean, there's that whole thing though, like when I'm younger, like if work opportunities come, I'll have to go to them.
Yeah.
But I think that's something we're lucky about in the UK is a lot of things are quite commutable.
It's not a big place when you think about it. It's quite a small island.
It's quite lucky, and I think I've been able to keep those relationships because of that. I don't know. Yeah, it's good. Is there any places you want to visit for a climb or anything like that?
Oh, definitely. I'd love to go to Patagonia, to Chile. I've always wanted to climb in South America. I think it's awesome. Wow. Now I've done the Alps. I think South America, yeah. I mean, I don't want to go there because of climbing, but I definitely want to go there for like Mexico. I really want to go to for sure. South America. My brother's done that. My brother's a bit older than me, and he's done traveling down there. He once told the story on this podcast where he got stopped at gunpoint in Mexico. He was on a coach, like a Transpennine coach. He got held at like gunpoint, and he thought he was going to lose his passport. He thought he was going to be stranded in Mexico. So maybe watch out for that. But I'm gonna have to stick to the remote bits, maybe.
Yeah, but no, you should definitely. I'd definitely have you back on, and if you have done any of these trips, I'd love for you to talk about them. Definitely. And I feel like today we have basically just touched the surface, and a lot we've been. They have been quite basic questions. It's definitely been like
a roller coaster, isn't it?
Yeah, but hopefully you can understand it's because today I kind of wanted to learn, and hopefully a lot of the people listening have learned as well. For sure. Unless there's anything else you kind of wanted to mention on.
Oh, I think I'm out, to be honest. I've said it all.
Yeah, no, that's good. Wow. I was just gonna kind of round up and let everybody know. I mean, if you guys want to follow him on Instagram, it depends if you want things public. Sure, but I'll leave his all the links and stuff he wants me to promote in the description. Thank you for coming on, man. I appreciate
My pleasure. I've loved it. It's been cool.
No, it's been great. We should do it again. We are on Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. I forget all the social medias nowadays. All the social medias we've been advocating for you to ignore and go outside. I'm now asking for you to go on them and follow me. But who doesn't love who doesn't love a bit of hypocrisy? No, thank you all for listening, and this has been very interesting. And I've really loved today's episode. Thank you for coming on. See you guys later.